With thanks to Randall Arts Management, visit www.randallam.com.au for more information. You're listening to Footscray Live. G'day everyone, my name is James and today I'm joined with Marley and Taylor to interview Brent Houghton, cameraman and editor who has worked with the legendary Jackie Chan. How are you today, Brent?
I'm good, James. I'm good.
That's good. So you've worked on multiple Jackie Chan movies. Which one that you worked on was your favourite and why?
I worked on 3 Jackie Chan films. I'd say my favourite would have been probably the first one I worked on. It was Police Story 4, First Strike, and it was just such an amazing experience to work with like a Hong Kong crew and everything like that. It's pretty incredible.
Now that you mentioned, you've worked with huge names, like obviously such as Jackie Chan. How did you get started in the industry? Because I think, for a lot of aspiring filmmakers or people who do want to get into the industry, it's really tough. So how did you get there?
I went to film school. I was always had a passion for filmmaking, and when I went to VCA School of Film and Television, and I made a martial arts film as my graduating film, and just loved it. Thought that was awesome and great. So then I decided that's what I wanted to do, and then I worked on a low-budget Australian martial arts film with a guy called Richard Norton, who's probably the most famous Australian martial artist, which not many people would have heard of. And through that, I ended up getting onto the Jackie Chan film. So it was just luck, really, luck and being in the right place at the right time.
So Brent, what's the hardest part about working in the entertainment industry?
It's very long hours, and it's a lot of early starts, late finishes. I worked a lot in the art department, so set dressing and props and that kind of thing. And you have to be there before everybody else, and then you've got to pack everything up and take it out, at the end of the day. So I'd say it's the hours. Really kills.
So you had a small acting role in the film, Mr. Nice Guy. Tell us about that.
So I was working as I was doing props and a bit of stunt rigging on that film, and the director, who's this really big fat Chinese guy called Sammo Hung, he just said to me one day, I'll put a suit on, I need someone else in this scene. And I just ended up getting more and more days. I probably had about 50 shooting days in the end on the movie. And then I ended up having a bit of dialogue, and then I ended up having a fight scene with Jackie Chan on the back of a carriage that was going down the middle of Swanston Street. And it just sort of snowballed. It was amazing.
Would you wish that later in your life you could have or still can work with Jackie Chan a bit more?
I reckon I did that. I think, that was a really great experience and really fun. And I got to do 3 movies with him, so I really enjoyed it. But I think I did my time there, and I was happy to move on.
Now that you mentioned that, who else have you worked with besides Jackie Chan?
Probably the 2 other biggest stars, and I don't know whether you guys would have heard of him, Jet Li, who's another legendary martial artist. So sort of in the day, it was sort of Jackie Chan and Jet Li were kind of like, Stallone and Schwarzenegger. So, they were sort of the 2 competing forces in the martial arts world. So I did one film with Jet Li, and that was amazing. That was over in America, and working in America was a very different experience than working anywhere else. And then I did a little film in Australia that had an actor called Michael York, who's a British actor who did some sci-fis in the 70s, and he played Basil Exposition in the Austin Powers movies.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Well, now that you mentioned, going to the US and, working with that British actor, have you managed to travel all over the world because of this job?
I've done very well, actually. I worked in the Netherlands, and I worked in Malaysia, and where else did I work? I've probably got to travel, and the States. So that's 3 different continents, or 4 including Australia. So it's and all that is doing pretty low end film work. So I wasn't a cinematographer. I was making props and doing a bit of stunt rigging. So it's pretty incredible that it can take you that far around the world in a pretty short space of time.
So what would you say is the best part about working in the entertainment industry?
You get to meet a lot of amazing people. You get to work with a lot of, fantastic, clever, incredible, inspirational people. I think some of the best lessons I learned, about life, I learned working on films and working with crews from different countries, and just seeing the more you travel and the more different people you work with, the more people are the same. So I think that was probably the greatest takeaway for me from that.
So you've talked about your work in film. Have you ever worked in the television industry?
Yeah, I worked on. I've done a lot of television commercials, and I worked on a TV show called Stingers, which was kind of like an Australian cop show, sort of probably late '90s, and sort of little bits and pieces of stuff. Nothing, I haven't done anything, grandiose on the TV side here.
So, talking about your entertainment career, you now work for a company called Silver Spoon Productions. What do you do there?
So for Silver Spoon Productions, I shoot and cut. So I probably spend half my time filming and then half my time editing. And it's probably since when I left working in film and television, I've been working there ever since. And that's probably coming up to 16, 17 years. And it's pretty amazing to have a job in the industry that I'm in full time for that length of time without a break. So I'm pretty grateful that I've been able to keep that role going.
And do you reckon you've enjoyed your time in film or television more?
Oh, it's a tough one. I think, when I was working in the films and working with Jackie Chan and travelling around, it was the right time in my life. I was in my, mid-20s, and, I was, really... It was a great experience for me to do so much travelling and have so much independence and work with all these amazing people. But then, when I got older and settled down and had kids and everything, and I wanted to be at home and be around my family, working in the television industry like I do now is a better fit for my lifestyle.
Which is your favourite genre of film?
Oh, it changes. I think when I was younger, I was really into horror movies. I've got like a bookshelf full of horror films, full of horror film books. But then I don't know, horror sort of took a left turn. I don't really like where it's gone now. So probably, and then I was into martial arts action films for a long time. I'd say sci-fi, and I'm pretty into Marvel at the moment too.
You just mentioned, you don't like how what horror's like now. How do you think the film industry's changed, in the past, few decades that you've worked in it?
Oh, look, I think, it's interesting how things, get very cyclical, and you sort of see trends come back around again. And at the moment, I think the most interesting thing's Netflix. I think that's the best disruptor at the moment. You used to have filmmakers would do their edgy stuff in cinema, and then TV was where all the safe stuff was done for the mass media. And it's changing. Now all the safe stuff's done in cinema, and you've got all the edgy stuff happening on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's really interesting.
So, you were saying before that you loved horror movies growing up. What would you say is your favourite horror movie and why?
Oh, I think Halloween would have to be one of my favourite horror films because it was one of the first ones that really scared me, and the music's just fantastic. And the director, John Carpenter, was, basically a film student who went and started making, hugely successful films straight out of film school. So I always really admired that as well. And his other one would be The Thing. I really love The Thing, the John Carpenter Thing.
You mentioned how you love the Halloween soundtrack, which I think most of us know some of the songs from Halloween, even if we haven't watched it or aren't completely sure it's from that film. I think having a really iconic soundtrack is important. So, what would you say? Do you think music's important in movies?
Oh, absolutely. I think sound in general is almost more important than the pictures. Like I can watch a film with bad pictures if the sound's good, but I can't watch a film with good pictures if the sound's terrible.
Yeah.
So I think the score is essential, and a good soundtrack.
So, you've worked a lot in the film and television industry. You're a big fan of movies. Have you ever considered, making your own movie or had an idea for one?
I tried very hard earlier in my career to get a couple of feature films off the ground. I had one which was an extension of my student film, my martial arts film I made at film school, which I pumped a lot of money in, made a trailer, took it around the world. I actually went and took it to the Cannes Film Festival and tried to sell it there. And look, in the end, it just didn't go anywhere. And the plot ended up being really similar to The Matrix. And when The Matrix came out, I was sitting in the cinema going, oh my God, that's the film we wanted to make. But they made it so much better than I would have. So I think that was probably, an interesting side, yeah.
What would you say your favourite memory, in the industry has been?
Favourite memory? Oh, look, I really liked my fight scene with Jackie Chan. That was a lot of fun. I really liked working. I liked working on the Jet Li film in America, but it was a really different experience because the culture there was so different. When I got involved in that film, my friends who had been making the Jackie Chan films went on to do this film in America, and they were having a lot of trouble with the local crew. There was a bit of racism, and they thought maybe I might be a better fit to help there. And when I got there, I was quite surprised at how racist the American crew was to the Hong Kong crew. And Hong Kong crews have a very different way of working. It's kind of like big budget film school. Everyone does a bit of everything, and it doesn't look like there's a plan, and then it all comes together in the end. And the American crews just couldn't really get their head around that way of working. So I was kind of like a bridge between how the two different crews worked. So that was a good experience, I guess. Yeah.
So do you think that the American film industry is different from what you imagined it?
Yes and no. I mean, I think, and this was 20 years ago now that I worked there, the film that I was working on, it had a crew from Hong Kong, it had crew from New York, it had crew from LA, and they were all really different. Like the LA crew were very we're Hollywood, we do things this way, and then the New York crew were like, oh no, we're too cool, we're in New York, and then the Hong Kong crew were just trying to get the film made. So look, it was a really interesting experience. But
Is there a movie that you've seen recently that you wish you could work on?
Oh, movie that I wish I could work on. John Wick 3. John Wick 3 would have been awesome to work on. That had some of the best fight scenes. The two dogs fighting and martial arts and knives. That was amazing. It was really cool.
Now that we're mentioning, recent movies, would you say the industry or current movies, you reckon they're getting better or even, on a decline?
I wouldn't say they're on a decline. I think, as I said before, I think it's sort of cyclical. I think that, something like, say, The Joker will come out and everyone will go, oh my God, that's so new and different, and then you get wrapped up in that. And then people start to try to repeat what happened, and things get imitated, and then things tend to fall apart, and then something new will come along, and some new big boom idea will come out. So I think the technology is definitely getting easier.
Yeah, for sure.
When I first started making films, you put film in a camera and you rolled it, and you would be as careful as possible not to roll too much film because it cost you hundreds of dollars to develop it. And then when you edited it, you put it in a splicing machine and you literally cut the film, took bits out, sticky taped it back together again. So the whole process now, you put an SD card in, you put it in your non-linear editing system, and you can do whatever you like. It's so much faster. So, yeah.
This might be a bit of a tricky one to answer. Who's your favourite actor?
Oh, favourite actor. Look, I would have said, 10 or 15 years ago, Kurt Russell, probably because, he was in Escape from New York and he was in The Thing, and, he was just super cool. But these days, who would my favourite actor be? Look, I'll go Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark.
Yeah. So just a last question to wrap us up for the day. Would you recommend people get into the film industry?
Oh, yeah. Look, I loved it. It's been fantastic. And there's so many different areas you can go into, and you're not locked into any one thing. If you start in one field, you can transition to all different ones. And it's... it was a really great way to sort of see the world too.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Brent. That's all the time we have. My name is James. I was joined today by Marley and Taylor. You're listening to Footscray Live.